My name is Sheila Lamb, and I'm with the Virginia SBDC Network. For those of you who are not familiar with our organization, the Virginia Small Business Development Center is a partnership program between the U.S. Small Business Administration, George Mason University, and local host institutions throughout Virginia. We provide, excuse me, I lost my place. With 26 locations across the Commonwealth, we provide training and technical assistance to small businesses in their local communities. Our one-on-one advising services are available at no charge. Today's webinar, Cybersecurity on a Budget, Protecting Your Small Business Without Breaking the Bank, is presented by the Virginia SBDC Network. We are recording today's presentation and it will be posted on our website, virginiasbdc.org. Due to the large number of participants, everyone's microphone is muted and the chat feature is turned off. But if you have questions during the presentation, you can type those into the Q&A box and we will address them at the end of the session. We have also enabled the live transcript function, which you can show or hide via your own meeting controls. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our presenter for today's session, Kiana Gainey. Kiana is a 20-plus year IT and cybersecurity industry veteran and has served as Chief Executive Officer for Secure Tech 360, located in Springfield, Virginia, since its inception in 2010. She is also the Cyber Industry Specialist for the Virginia SBDC. Welcome, Kiana.
Thank you, Sheila, and welcome to everyone. We'll dive right in today. I know that we all have our holiday ears and hearts all ready for the holidays. And so today we want to give you some tips to be able to help with your budget. So I know you may be spending a lot for the holidays. So let's make sure that we have some things that we can give you to be able to jumpstart the new year and do cybersecurity, what I like to call on a budget. Next slide. So again, a little bit about myself. We'll talk a little bit about my background. I've been doing this for about 15 to 20 years now, and I am a small business owner just like you. And so outside of being in the industry, I understand costs very well as a small business owner. So I'm always looking for those great freebies, or I like to call complimentary services, to be able to help keep my business up to date with the latest and greatest, but also protecting us as we go along as well. Next slide. So I'm super excited about this role here and be able to help other small business owners. I also have a little nonprofit experience, so I understand for-profit, nonprofit, been in the federal and state and local government for a while, so understand that as well. So hopefully I'll be able to give you some tips and tricks of things that I've learned along the way to help me with my small business. Next slide. So cybersecurity and budget, why does it matter? 43% of most cyber attacks are targeted against small businesses. I know we only see the large businesses that are usually attacked on the media, on social media, or even on the local news. But the reality of it is that all businesses, regardless of its size, can be victims of cyber attacks or cyber risk, depending on what the nature of your business is and what the actual hackers are looking for, right? So our challenge as a small business owner sometimes is we have limited resources, which doesn't necessarily mean that we should have limited security that's available to us. The biggest thing that we can do is as a small business owner, is just like as we put together our business plan, is also create a plan to be able to plan for certain things, or just be able to have things in place to be able to safeguard our business and using some cost-effective strategies. The biggest thing that you'll hear me say throughout this presentation is prevention is the most effective cost than recovery, right? So no different than when you go to the dentist and tell you, get your 2 cleanings a year, at least once a year, so that you can prevent certain things. It's the same thing with cybersecurity, just like with any other things that we have in our business. Next slide. So cybersecurity doesn't have to be expensive. There are a lot of essential things that you can do. You can just start with the basics. So like even when I go in and I put on my government hat as a consultant for the government, the first thing that I do even with my clients is I say, let's sit down and let's identify all your key assets. That's everything from what data you're using, if you are responsible for storing data, what data are you collecting? What's all of your systems information, all the information about your customers. Do you have password policies? Are your users, do they understand how to create a strong, unique password for all their accounts. Do you have things in your environment like two-factor authentication? Are you doing things like software updates, plugins, anything to keep your systems running? When you see those, time to update your systems, are you doing that? Do you have a policy? Do you have a way to test that policy? Or do your employees know? Do you know? Because sometimes even as a small business owner, you are usually your first employee and you have many jobs. So sometimes it's just about educating yourself. And then necessarily as you start growing, you start implementing those same type of behaviors for your employees. And you can do that by simply just developing a cybersecurity policy. It can be something that's clear, very simple guide for your employees. I recommend that even as you're hiring new employees, as it's a part of your in processing checklist, everything from my even when my new employees are onboarded, we do everything from rules of behaviors, and that rules of behavior is just how we will behave while we're on social media, how we'll behave using our email, what is some email etiquette. We talk about all those different things, what to do in the event that you receive an email that is coming from an unknown source, or even a text message from an unknown source. There's a lot of things called phishing attacks. There's smashing attacks. There's so many different things that are out there. So understanding even those terms and what those terminology means and defining those, and then walking through each of those scenarios is also very helpful. Also, one big thing that doesn't cost anything is very efficient, is limiting your user access. So ensuring employees who only need access to certain information is very necessary. So if you're in HR and that's what you're doing, then you necessarily may not need information to tech guides, right? But maybe you do. So figuring out who needs what. If there's users that are going to have privileged access, which means maybe they need certain accesses on their machines. Maybe they need to be, I remember back in the day, we used to have things called super users, because you needed that because maybe you were running a database or you were running some other program in the background. But making sure even with those access that you're giving those employees, that they understand the risks that are involved with those privileged access accounts. And then also I keep a list of all of the users that have specialty privileges. And then I implement even stronger cybersecurity policies for them. So they have to, update that password more frequently. If in the event that there's a security event, we make sure that everyone's trained, and we do that all throughout the life cycle of you being an employee with us. And then also you can do things like build an action plan. The action plan can help you do things we just talked about, regularly reviewing your security posture, reviewing your business as a whole. What things that you can do to improve your business, your security posture, or even your business as a whole. Staying updated, keeping updated. Every day I listen out for the news to see what new things are happening in cybersecurity, and this even in the world, because sometimes that's also predicated on what can be happening within your own small business, and you need to probably make some changes as you go along. So those are just some key essentials, key points to just help you with some of the basics in cybersecurity. So nothing that you probably haven't heard of before, or things that you probably are not doing every day, but these, just like with your regular routine and policies and procedures that you have in your small business, just make sure that you incorporate cybersecurity as well. Next slide. So best practices, right? To strengthen your cybersecurity posture, making sure that your team is educated, conduct those regular cybersecurity training. I like to do something when you first start, and then usually on an annual basis or whenever a significant change occurs. And that could be anything that's happening in mainstream media, or things that are happening within our infrastructure. And then backing up my data, regularly backing up your data to protect against ransomware and system failures. So in the event that something happens, and you can go back to that backup and then be able to keep operations going. But one caveat with most people, I've had people that say, oh, I have these plans in place, I backed up my data, but they've never tested their backups. And then when we go to do a recovery, the recovery fails. And so in addition to backing up your data, making sure you're doing that on a regular basis, make sure you're testing those backups as well, to make sure that they don't have any failures or errors that you can catch in real time. And then if you have the budget, invest in things like antivirus or firewalls. But most applications or software have some level of protection within those applications or software. So take some time to educate yourself on that, and then implement those depending on what software or applications that you're using to help detect or prevent any malware attacks as well. Next slide. So again, I like to talk about my freebies. This is the good part. So there are some free and affordable cybersecurity resources that you may even have in your environment and you just maybe didn't know. Microsoft Defender is an antivirus software that is a freebie for Microsoft. We will send out with the PowerPoint presentation some of these resources and some links. So I'll make sure you get that as well, so you can go and check those out. And then, like I talked about earlier, there are sometimes some built-in firewall solutions in your operating system, such as Windows or Macs. Implement those, turn those on. And then for backups, if you're saying, oh, I can't really afford a complete backup solution, there's things that you can back up maybe on a Google Drive or a Dropbox. Maybe that's something that may be low cost. And I know some of these programs you get some complimentary backup storage for, just to get you started. So it's better than not having anything. So, at least start there if you can. I think Google Drives, they give you up to 15 gigabytes once you sign up. And then also there's threat detection agencies like CISA, which is a great agency that's all about sharing what cybersecurity information that you need in real time, what's going on with the industry as a whole, but then also what's going on in the current landscape of security. So I'm a big newsletter. So I like to go in and request to have the newsletter sent to me so that I can know what's going on in real time. And you can do that as well. That's also a very low cost solution to keep you updated. So if you don't have time to watch the news every day, like myself, you can at least get those alerts in your inbox and they'll come to you free of charge. So I say take advantage of all the freebies. Next slide. So again, we talked about the biggest thing for me is creating a security first culture, right? That's all about making sure that cybersecurity is embedded into your business. What you might say, what is the security first culture? It's really just a mindset, having every employee prioritize cybersecurity in their daily actions. So that's just keeping it in front of mind. We like to do, even at our staff meetings, we go around the room and we talk about what new cybersecurity tip. And then sometimes there are things I'll even ask some employees and they'll say, oh, my kids told me about this, or I saw this on the news, and we'll start the discussion about that. And then we also do some scenario-based training. So I'll have people call in and just to see if an employee will give out information about the company of things that we've already discussed, or we'll even do like random checks to make sure that people are, keeping their laptops up to date, because we have a lot of remote workers. So sometimes I'll say, bring in your laptop to make sure that we're keeping, the laptops up to date if there's no additional software that's being added. And then that goes back to making sure that those systems are locked down and that the access for what you need to do your job is very pertinent to what's on that machine. And so if I see that something's happening different in the background, then we can either have a conversation and maybe it can be something, because not all attacks or all things that are happening can be malicious. Sometimes they're unintentional. So we want to just make sure that we're highlighting what's happening and educating as we go along. And then as a leader myself, I always try to lead by example. I used to be guilty of because these strong passwords, I would write them down and put them on a sticky, but then I would lock the sticky up in my drawer. And then I said, okay, I have to be a better lead by example, and make sure that I started using passwords that I would be able to, that wouldn't be so difficult that I couldn't remember, but I would learn with doing things like, more phrases or things that were more unique to me so that I can remember, so that I didn't have to write them down and put them in a drawer for me to be able to get to kind of remember. And then again, continuous education, keeping cybersecurity on top of your mind, like attending a training like this today, even just before the holidays, doing those type of things. If there's opportunities, I know that they're always hosting different webinars or different events, being a part of, like if you was a part of Cybersecurity Awareness Month in October, that's always happening. There's always things that are happening. So just keeping that continuous education is also key. And then integrating security into your operations, making sure that even as you're making business decisions, think about how this will impact your security posture, how this will impact your employees, your stakeholders. If you decide to take on once your business is growing and booming, and let's say before you were, now you're taking credit cards, what does that look like? What is the standards for that? How should I protect myself? How should I protect my customers as they're coming in? If you're responsible for collecting information, should I send out privacy policies to my um, to the people that I'm supporting to make sure that they know how I'm keeping their privacy secure, and even implementing those things that may be needed to be able to secure the data that you are responsible for. So just keeping that into your everyday operation is what we consider having a security first culture within your organization. Just changing that mindset. Next slide. So some key takeaways, preparation is definitely key. Implementing proactive measures such as regular security audits, employee training, incident response planning to minimize risk. So we talked about, outside of having a cybersecurity plan, you can create things like an incident response plan for your employees to understand what to do in real time if something's happening. I like to use rosters, so you know who to call, what to do in the event of emergency. And then we also have things that we implement based on threat levels. So if it's like a threat level 1, this is what you do. If it's a threat level 2, this is what you do, and then kind of iron it out. And then we test that at least on an annual basis or whenever a significant change occurs, to make sure that the education is constantly ongoing, and making sure that our employees are prepared. In addition to recognizing pressing cybersecurity threats that may impact your small business. So again, if you're doing certain functions within your business that impacts maybe your customers, making sure you understand what those threats are so that you can be able to put protection mechanisms within your organization on how you process information, how you keep information, how you collect information, and then implementing practical steps for employee training, building that security first culture, staying proactive in the safeguarding of your business is also very key. And then there are some additional things like resources that you can use, train your staff to how to identify phishing and social engineering attempts. That is a very sophisticated tactic that a lot of hackers are using. It wasn't like, when you look at some of the cyber incidents that are happening on the news, it's not necessarily that these larger organizations have these a massive amount of budgets that they're putting in all these additional safeguards for their organization. They may have the latest and greatest and all those things, but one thing that we all have in common, which is employees, which is people. Anytime you introduce people into the mix, anything can happen, right? So you need them to understand how important it is not to click on links from unknown sources. Some things are just, you can pick up the phone and just call someone to say, hey, I got this email from Bob in accounting. It's asking me for some information. Was this sent from Bob? And you'll be surprised, like, oh, Bob is no longer with the company, or oh no, I also got that email this morning as well. Just making sure that they understand that even when things may look like it's from a source that you are familiar with, they're very sophisticated with just changing a few things. So if it doesn't feel right, if it was something that you wasn't expecting, double check, verify, trust but verify everything. Those are definitely key takeaways to make sure that you are, being proactive and putting things in place to make sure that you don't add additional risk to your organization. And then you can use, set up basic security tools that we talked about. Install the antivirus software. Make sure that you are limiting your exposure. So if you are using, let's say, your business laptop for everything, even I know sometimes as a small business owner, my business laptop is also my personal laptop. Make sure that you have a practice that you're segmenting what you're doing with each of those functions. If you can, if it's possible, do too many personal things on your business laptops, because now you're, opening yourself to additional exposure. So just simple things like that you can do to minimize your risk and to safeguard your business. Next slide. So in conclusion, cybersecurity is one of those continuous journey things. The best thing you can do is to stay informed, be proactive, stay prepared, and understand that each team member plays a vital role in safeguarding your business. So it's important for them to understand the threat landscape that's coming, that's there, is happening, as technology is advancing, and we're using everything from artificial intelligence now. We're using the Internet of Things. Like everything has an IP, everything from even your refrigerator to your phone to your car. It's all around you. Um, no matter what it is, make sure that you understand, even as you are implementing and adding new things into your environment, that you understand all the risk involved. So when we talked about in the beginning with having inventory of every device and every function of that device and what it's the purpose of it, and making sure that if there is things that you can turn on for those within those application devices to be able to secure your organization. So no different than we have our cell phones, right? Outside of our cell phones, we all take the time to put a pin on that cell phone, right? And then even if we have email open on there, maybe we have a password for that email. We don't just have everything open for that reason. And then in the event if something happens to that phone, then we have maybe capability to do a remote wipe. It's the same concept even in your small business. You can implement those things, and those are things that are very low cost, free of charge. There's some freebies in there, but making sure that you have effective employee training, make sure that you're using data protection strategies to enhance your cybersecurity, cultivating that security first culture within your organization is very key as you are small and as you're on the roadmap to being big or large or medium size, regardless of what state your business is in or what you're doing for your employees or stakeholders or customers. Cybersecurity is here to stay, and it's one of those things that it's a continuous journey. But if you stay proactive and be prepared, you'll be able to be just fine as you navigate this new threat landscape. Next slide. So any questions? I know I covered a lot in a small period of time.
You did cover a lot, but it was all very good information. And we do have a couple questions that have dropped in.
Okay.
Let's see. So the first one, how would you suggest a small business get assistance in developing standards and training if they're not familiar with cybersecurity basics?
So that's a great question. So we're going to send out, in addition to the slides, a list of resources and organizations outside of our own organization. We have a great website as well that has a lot of future or past webinars that may be more specific to your industry. We also have options where if you need, one-on-one assistance, that you can email help@virginiasbdc.org, and someone will help you kind of go through what that will look like. But take advantage of just some of the websites that are out there. SBA has a great website that has a lot of information. It's one of my favorites. I think I said CISA.gov is that's a whole organization that's dedicated to cybersecurity. So everything is on there from every small business, regardless of what stage your business is in. KnowBe4 security awareness training. They have some free training that you can take as a small business owner, and you can get that to your employees as well. It gives you the basic cybersecurity tips and tricks on how to stay safe, or even to go more into depth on things we talked about, like phishing attacks or what that looks like. Phishing.org is another one. Federal Trade Commission is another one. All great. SANS security awareness. That's a great website as well. They have a lot of information. So the information is there, it's readily available. It can also feel maybe sometimes overwhelming because it's a lot of information. You're trying to figure out how to process it. So, take advantage of that. But I always would start there first. But just how you would put together your business plan, make a list and write down like all your critical assets, what you're trying to protect, and then go on the road on trying to figure out how to protect that. So I always have like another way to say, okay, if I'm trying to protect my laptops, what do I need to protect the laptops? Do I need to implement remote wipe for those laptops? Do I need to put a BitLocker, which is another way to lock or encrypt that laptop? So it's just different things. So there's not like a one size fit all. I said all that to say, but there are a lot of information out there to help you be able to navigate the current landscape as it's ever changing. So staying abreast of those things is also important as well.
Great. We have a few more questions that have popped in. Let's see. This one's thanking you for a wonderful presentation. The question is it a good idea to use AI to help you with the draft for your cybersecurity guidelines?
Yes. So and the thing with AI, and this is my thing, I love the evolution of technology. I'm in the technology space. I'm all for technology. However, comma dot. Just like when you log into Facebook or you log into Instagram, and they tell you that your information can be used and shared, right? So if you take the time to read those privacy policies, take the time to understand what you're putting in there. Don't put all of your trade secrets or anything inside of AI, because it is collecting data. So even though it's a great tool and resource to use, just keep in your mindset that it's collecting data. How that data is going to be used and retrieved, and how they're going to be able to make money, because it's a free resource to you, but somebody has to keep the service running. There's a business, there's an entire business model behind that, right? So don't put anything in there that you don't want to be shared among the community of advancement, or the community to help people understand what you're doing, right? So just be aware of that. But yes, you can definitely start with AI. Put in, I want to create a cybersecurity plan for my business, and I'm a retail store. You don't have to put your address. You don't have to put what type of retail. You don't have to give all those details, just to give you the baseline. Then you can come back and ask another question, like from your professional experience. If you were a professional and you were putting together this plan for me, what would it look like? Have them give you more information than you give them information. That's always my rule of thumb when dealing with artificial intelligence.
I like that. Let's see. Do you have any updates on the CMMC requirement? Will my MSP have to be CMMC certified as well?
So that's a couple things. So I think the last notice that I received about CMCC was that it's definitely taking off. Before, I know it was like start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. But for depending on your business, and if you're working with the federal government, let's say you're working as a subcontractor, and you're using a managed service provider, that's what an MSP, for anyone in the audience that didn't know what that is. If they are, the first step you have to do is just a self-assessment. And I'll add that to the resource too. There's a wonderful program called Project Spectrum that has a lot of free resources to help you kind of navigate what that new landscape would be. But the self-assessment is just everything that we kind of talked about today, which is making an inventory of what's in your environment, putting together a cybersecurity plan, do you have backups, testing that. It's just really assessing your security posture. That is all you have to do for level 1. When you start getting to level 2 and level 3, you may have to hire an independent person to come in to do just what we talked about, to make sure that you have the certain things in place. But find out from your managed service provider what their requirements are. Are they a level 1? Do they just have to do a self-assessment? Find out if they've done that self-assessment. Check, check, check. Keep that for your records. If they have to do a level 2 and it is progressing, make sure that they keep you updated as well as they go along with it. So we don't really know outside of what they've already put out if there will be additional changes. But again, Project Spectrum is a great website. They'll keep you up to date. They'll send you updates as it's happening in real time. At one point, it was supposed to be done before the end of the year, and then it changed again. So yeah, so that's the best source that I would say to keep you updated with that.
Great. Let's see. At what point would you recommend a small business start to consider cybersecurity insurance, being that it can be expensive?
So yes. So for myself, even though I'm a small business owner, because I'm in the cyber business and I do a lot of my work online, and the nature of what I'm doing, it's a part of my business. So it'll be no different than I was insuring a car if I'm a truck driver. So I would, if I'm a truck driver. So I'm saying this just as a small business owner, your risk more than anyone. You understand that risk more than anyone. Calculate what that will look like for you in real time. I know that I know Hiscox, and I don't want to use one vendor over the other, but I've heard some small business owner who use Hiscox and got some level of cybersecurity risk insurance, and it was very $200 a month, which is low cost. And then I've seen some people have to spend $800 to $900 depending on what type of business that they're doing. So get a quote, find out, count it out and see if it's something that you can do for your business. But it's really going to be based on what your level of comfort if you need that for the nature of what you're doing. It doesn't hurt. And then you may even be surprised if you have current coverage, if there may be something that you can add to that coverage as well. So talk to your insurance rep to see if that's something that you can do as well.
Great. We currently have one more question, so I'm going to go ahead and put out there. If there are any other questions that you're thinking of, go ahead and drop them into the Q&A box now so we can pick Kiana's brain. So the last question we currently have is how often, actually it's two questions.
Okay.
How often should you test your backup protocol, and what does it mean to test the backup?
So you should test it at least. So I have folks that do incremental backups, or sometimes they do full backups. Incremental just means you're only backing up a certain amount, a little bit each day. And sometimes the full will be you're backing up the full thing every day. And so a good rule of thumb is to test it at least on a monthly or either a quarterly basis, or whenever something significant happens in your environment. If you're not familiar with something like that, then that's when you should probably hire someone to help with that. But again, you can also use things like the artificial intelligence to say, create me a backup plan. This is the nature of what I'm doing. How often should I do it? Lay out instructions. This is what I'm using. This is the tool that I'm using, and they'll lay it out for you. And so you can create yourself your own user-friendly guide to make sure that you understand. And then also always create a calendar of reminders for myself. So if it's something that I'm doing monthly, maybe it's the 30th of each month, the 15th of each month, I'll send myself an alert to make sure it's getting done. Or if I'm hiring somebody else to do it, then that's my kind of my foot stomp to see, has this happened? Let's test it. Let's see if something's happening. If it's not happening, then if something did happen, how we're going to fix it. So I use that opportunity to be able to just stay abreast of what's going on in my environment.
We don't have any other questions that have popped in, so this is your all's last chance to do so. Kiana, you always give us wonderful words of wisdom. So do you have any sort of like wrap-up words of wisdom while we wait to see if any more questions pop in?
So just with cybersecurity always changing, right? The best tool that you can do, and I think we talked about this earlier, is being preventive, right? Just with anything else, create a plan for yourself. Make sure you understand what's in your environment. Use wonderful tools like artificial intelligence to help you if you can't afford to pay for a consultant. Utilize a lot of the wonderful support that's out there free of charge. Sometimes even if it's a minimum of having to pay a couple of dollars here and there, if it's going to be something that's going to help your organization, definitely, make the investment. If you can't afford cyber risk insurance, definitely get it. If it's something that you need for your organization, talk to your insurance reps. I know at the end of the year, as we're all winding down, we're looking at creating goals for next year. Put this as one of your strategic goals, and then, move forward with doing something towards it every month. And then, it's with anything, hold yourself accountable, get your accountability partner if you have to, or just set alerts for yourself to challenge yourself to make sure that you're staying on top of what your goals that you set for 2025.
Fabulous. Let's see. So we don't have any other questions. So I'm going to go ahead, I guess, and wrap us up. I'm going to remind everyone to check our website for upcoming trainings. And also on there, you can sign up for our newsletter, and you'll actually just get emailed every Monday a list of upcoming trainings, whether it's cybersecurity, digital marketing, whatever it may be. We already do have some things planned for January. I don't have the calendar in front of me, so if you check there and sign up for our newsletter, you'll absolutely have that information right in front of you, and you can go ahead and get those on your schedule. We might have just had one more question drop in. Bear with me one second. Let's see.
How do we find local
cyber?
Yep. How do we find local cybersecurity resources agency in our local community? So again, that Virginia SBDC website is one of your local partners if you're in this area. If not, the SBDC website also has where you can look for things that may be more local to you as well. So there's definitely a plethora of information out there. I would start with that website, and you'll definitely find what you're looking for.
Right. Yeah. Actually, on our website, we have a whole section just devoted to cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm.
You, Kiana. So yes, so that's it. I think, like you said, we all have probably a very busy day. We're headed up to the holidays next week. So I want to thank Kiana very much for a wonderful webinar as always, and thank everyone who attended today. Remind you that you will receive an email with a link to the recording and to the slides, and you will have that by tomorrow because we are off for the next 2 weeks. So if you would like to sign up for upcoming webinars or access recorded webinars, please visit virginiasbdc.org/training. That's where you can find all those wonderful upcoming webinars that we are already scheduling in 2025.
Yes.
This webinar and other SBD resources are designed to be used in collaboration with your local SBDC advisors. You can sign up for a free and confidential session by emailing help@virginiasbdc.org over our website. And we hope to see you at our next session. And I stumbled because I think we might have had another question. Nope, everyone,
It was
thank
some
you for
thank
the
yous.
information. And we agree. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday season and a very prosperous 2025. And we do look forward to seeing you all next year. So
Yes.
take
Thank you
care,
so much.
everyone. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.